welcome to another episode of Lie, Cheat, and Steal, the podcast about liars, frauds, thieves, and bullshitters. I'm your host, Pat Royce. I want to remind you that we are a bi-monthly podcast, and you can also check us out on Twitter at LCS Podcast, as well as our TikTok, which is at Lie, Cheat, and Steal Podcast. And then we also have our Patreon. If you like what you hear, we do 2 more episodes per month on there. It's patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal. So go ahead and check it out. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a 5-star review and a nice little comment under our podcast. That'll help get the word out. That being said, welcome to the show. With me, as always, my co-host, Kath Barbadoro. Kath, how you doing?
Hi, Pat. I'm doing good. We're recording this on a Sunday night. Excited to settle in and watch all my Sunday television shows.
Yeah.
Succession, Barry. Those are my big Sunday ones.
I've been catching up on Succession, season 3 right now, so I'm getting close. I've fallen asleep with it on enough that I've spoiled season 4 a little bit for me. I know where it's going, but I love the show so much that it's okay. My girlfriend, we have 2 little dogs. We have George and Edward. You met both. And the little white dog, Edward, he's a little old and he moves around and he has a little sometimes a little curmudgeonly kind of posture. So we've been giving him Logan's voice.
I can see that.
Yeah, he'll walk in a room, we'll just be like, "Fuck off." And, it's pretty fun. But yeah, we're a Succession household as well. That's what's up. Yeah, we are on a Sunday. This is going to be not really a long episode, but it's a lot to cover. So okay. I am going to dive right in. Let's see. Let's do a segue here. Yeah. Speaking of we're talking about Succession. Oh no! Hit me. I need it.
So this episode is about someone American pretending to be British. Succession is about a lot of British people pretending to be American. So that's my segue. Speaking of white people doing accents that they don't actually have. How's that?
And we are not revisiting. Yeah, that's very good. And we are not revisiting the Hilaria Baldwin episode. This is new white people doing accents territory. Today we're talking about a lot of listeners reached out to us with this. They sent us for Nichola Alahverdian.
Which I somehow have missed all of this, so I'm excited. Yeah, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, Nichola Alahverdian, aka Nicholas Rossi, aka Arthur Knight, aka Big Nick. No, I don't know if that's his name, but that's what we're talking about today. This is an insane story. It's still developing. This guy, I was thinking about how we have the Good Guys Club. I think we're starting to get some people in now. I don't want to to steal from last podcast and call it heavy hitters, but just people who are the most you can be full of shit, just like out of this world full of shit. And we've had George Santos. I think was the first one who really. It made me think of maybe we need a new category for guys like this, just hyper liars. Yeah. And George Santos is in this one, and so is Nichola Alahverdian. That's I've always thought that we might have a new category of people who are just insanely full of shit, like to a point where this guy is one of these people who just lies on top of lies, always scamming. We're talking today about Nichola Alahverdian, and Nichola Alahverdian is an American convicted sex offender from Rhode Island. Who is also an international fugitive hiding in plain sight under an assumed identity in the United Kingdom. Nicholas is wanted in connection with a 2008 rape case in Utah, as well as a federal fraud case involving his adopted parents in Dayton, Ohio.
I don't know if this is going to come up in this story, but I'm assuming this has something to do with the coronation, just statistically.
It actually doesn't. It doesn't. That is a...
Only that it hasn't been discovered yet. There's a connection that hasn't been discovered yet. That's all I'll say.
I mean, I guess crowning a single human absolute ruler of an entire island is kind of a fraud case in and of itself.
I mean, there was, I don't know what kind of sex offender this guy is, but, the coronation did have its own royal pedophile there, so. That's maybe insane. This guy was second on the list to fulfill that role. I don't know.
How could you, and the Prince Andrew guy, how could you just be like, after what you just went through very publicly, show back up with a stupid coat on, all smiling like anybody cares or likes you. Ugh, disgusting.
I think he's like a full simpleton is my guess. I think he has like not a lot of brain activity going on.
Yeah.
But it's anyway, like, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, to fire back Succession, it's like Kendall's season 3 run where he's like, everybody's gonna love me. Watch, and it's like, no, everyone still hates you. You've changed nothing. So, in recent weeks, he's made media appearances alongside his wife, claiming to be an English gentleman by the name of Arthur Knight. He's reportedly still recovering from a brutal case of COVID. Actually, that's one of the few things you can confirm about his story is he did almost die of COVID, and that's how they caught him.
Okay.
So
is he in the media because of his because of this case, or was he like already doing media appearances for something else?
So he got caught because of COVID because he was on the run and he was doing a real good job covering his tracks internationally by disguising his IP address. Okay. And then my theory is that when he had to go into the hospital because of COVID, his interactions with his wife, she wasn't keeping up the same strenuous level of online secrecy that he was, and they were able to peg his accounts to certain IP addresses.
But he wasn't like what I was trying to figure out. Like he wasn't on TV for something else, and they
no.
He's on TV. Okay.
Yeah, he's on TV because he is suspected. We'll get that out the way. He's not suspected. Like this dude is somebody else. Like this guy Arthur Knight. He's a fake person. All of Britain knows it, and it's kind of hilarious the way the reporters dog him. It's like, do you think your time's running out as Arthur Knight? Like, you can just feel him wanting to be like, you cunt. They're really mad at this guy. So, yeah, he's been saying that he claims that this is the reason he shields his face with an oxygen mask. And although it should be noted that in all the interviews he's given, the oxygen mask is fitted improperly and doesn't appear to be attached to an oxygen tank. So
nice. Yeah.
The absurdity of this act and the steadfastness to which Alahverdian has stuck to his story would be impressive if it weren't for the truly disgusting and brutal nature of his crimes.
Sure.
The act is fun to watch, but it is important to remember that he's using it to escape justice for extremely violent acts against women. And we won't go to the more graphic details of his sexual crimes, but they are a key element to the story. So we will be discussing them and enlisting them. So heads up. So that will be coming up. So everybody out there, just if that's something that you want to listen to, totally understood, but is going to come up. So to understand the story, it's best we start with the most shocking detail of all, and that is his own death. So it's
we got a death faker on our hands.
Yeah, boy.
Lovely.
This guy is like an amalgamation of every type of scam you can do. There's financial scams, there's identity scams. It's everything. There's like this dude is playing with a full George Santos deck.
Nice.
So it's February 29th, 2020 in Providence, Rhode Island. State representatives and city council members and other assorted figures of Rhode Island government received some crushing news. Nichola Alahverdian, the outspoken child welfare advocate who they had watched grow up in those halls of power where he started as a page in his early teens and eventually returned to fight for reform in the Rhode Island foster care system, of which himself he was a product. He had, at the age of 32, succumbed to his long battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
R.I.P.
R.I.P., man. Nicholas was known as an intellectually gifted kid who would read bills back to back. They said he had a deeper understanding of laws than many of the elected officials. He formed close bonds with many of those figures who frequented the state building in Providence. On one instance, when Nicholas was on the verge of aging out of the foster care program, one representative had even considered adopting him. So that's how close he was with these people.
Yeah.
He was like, like when a young comic comes around, all the older comics kind of take him in. He was like that guy. Everyone's like, oh, we love this little dude, you know?
Good place to learn how to lie. Politics.
Yeah.
Especially Rhode Island politics, which are like sort of notoriously corrupt. So
insane.
Good place to be.
One of the guys talking about him is just like a full-on fucking chain. He's just like, yeah, I always thought he was a good kid. Turned out he wasn't. There's a lot of that. So Nicholas would return later. So he left the state house at a certain point, and he would return later in his life as a young man. And there he fought for foster system reform, and he shared stories of the horrific abuse that he had faced growing up in that system. So the news hadn't been sudden. The public had been made aware of his diagnosis and medical struggle several months prior via a press release put out by his wife, Louise. Nick had married Louise shortly after moving to Scotland, and she had been his caretaker in the last months of his life. News outlets.
Okay, so he the identity change, he was already documented to be in Scotland.
Yes, yeah.
He moved there with his wife.
He moved there. Well, he moved there, met a woman, and married her there. So he married.
Got it. So she's a Scottish woman. Okay,
yeah, Scottish woman, and so he marries there. So but his home is Rhode Island. His home is Rhode Island politics. So they start reaching out to people, with saying like, hey, it was released by his wife through his agency, so to speak, his PR agency, and it was saying that he had married Louise shortly after moving to Scotland, and she had been his caretaker in the last months of his life. News outlets in Rhode Island began to ran pieces on the declining health of the former Providence political figure, and well wishes began to pour out from public figures such as mayors and governors. And one reporter of the Providence Journal, Tom Mooney, was asked by his editors to cover the story, but he declined. And this led the ailing Nicholas to contact him. Nicholas contacted him and was like, he said he was polite, but he explained, like, hey, man, my impending death is newsworthy. I had a big impact on Rhode Island politics. So Tom listened to him. He talked to his editor, and he was like, you know what? Let's do a human interest piece.
Okay, so I thought you said they announced his death. They announced that he was about to die.
They initially announced that he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and that he was about to die, that he was near death.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, so that's coming up, and people are starting to do, pour out well wishes.
Sure. And so then he pitches this human interest profile about him because he's at the end of his life. Okay.
And he had other agencies were doing news pieces on him, and like a lot of them were. And this one guy from Providence Journal was like, no, I don't want to do that. And he called him. I think Providence Journal had a place in his heart, and he was like, no, I want to get like, it's like when our shit was in the Austin Chronicle. I was like, hell yeah. That was what he wanted. So Tom Liston was like, all right, man, here's what we'll do. We'll do a human interest piece, and I'll follow you along to a chemotherapy session, and I'll interview you. And when he pitched this to Nicholas, the tenor of the conversation changed. He told Tom, he goes, man, I can't do that. I'm not in Rhode Island right now. He goes, well, where are you? He's like, well, he became even more invasive. So this raised a few red flags for Tom. And a few months later, when the news broke that Nicholas had actually passed away, the news passing bugged him even more. And another public figure who was bugged after Nicholas's death was Father Healy over at Our Lady of Mercy in Providence. Nicholas's widow, Louise, had contacted the priest asking if they would host a memorial mass for Nicholas, and Father Healy obliged. And as soon as he did, he started getting all these special requests from her started to pour in. She wanted music. Specifically, she wanted classical music. She wanted Bach, Beethoven. She requested speeches to be made by 5 elected officials. She also wanted to
So this guy is designing his dream funeral. It sounds
yeah. What's that old expression? Like, if you get to write your own eulogy, don't hold back. That's for sure him.
He wants a whole celebratory ceremony all about him that he can then indirectly witness as the
exactly
some real Huck Finn shit.
Yeah. He said he wanted she wanted to play a video of Nicholas on his deathbed saying his final words set to the orchestral score to the movie Contact.
Okay.
Yeah, the last words that his last words that were recorded was, "Fear not and run to the bliss of the sun."
All right, he's landed on a little thick.
Yeah, I just watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where he's like, me and my friends are going to fly in the forever in blue sky. And that was better written than that. So Father Healy was taken aback by the request. When she said she wanted Bach or Beethoven, he was like, I guess we could get some recordings. And she was like, well, if we wanted it, who would pay for an orchestra?
Okay, we need this live. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was kind of taken aback by this. But before he had time to really react, he got another request from the FBI. And the request was, don't do this memorial because we believe that Nichola Alahverdian is still alive. So yeah, big spoiler there. So
I'm sure the guy was relieved he didn't have to do this extremely over the top funeral. He's like, oh, this frees up my schedule considerably. Thank goodness.
Thank the Lord this man's alive. So this is like, you know, the end of that story, but to like kind of understand where it starts, we're gonna go back to
and Nicholas when was Alahverdian. This the funeral? When was this? When did he say he was dead?
For 2020, he died February.
Okay, 2020. Got it.
Yeah. So
February 2020, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, right before COVID, and it almost thinks that if COVID had hit, like so a lot of the cops say if he hadn't caught COVID, we wouldn't have caught him.
Yeah, and yeah.
I kind of wonder like what would have if COVID would have like happened like beforehand, if he would have played it into his thing. I don't know.
Right.
He said he died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then the first question was like, well, or that he had it. First question is, well, let's go to a chemotherapy session. When just 3 weeks later, he could have just been like, yo, he died of COVID. And
right. Like, I have COVID, do the human interest story on me, but you can't come witness it because it's COVID.
Because I have COVID. Yeah, exactly. So Nicholas Alahverdian was born in Rhode Island. He grew up in Rhode Island. He had now according to his own biography, he wrote his own book. It's insane. What is it called? His book is called. It's basically it's something to the effect of like it paints him as a huge hero. I don't have the name of it up here, but he wrote his own book. But according to him, he was born to alcoholic parents who couldn't take care of him. Now he did have a family life for a little bit, and it started in 1996 when his mom married his stepdad, David Rossi, where he would get the name Nicholas Rossi, which is like one of the names he goes by in his life. So they met so David's stepmom or David's mom or Nick's mom met David at a Rhode Island bar where David was an Engelbert Humperdinck impersonator.
Okay.
And he would like sing
Didn't know
songs.
that was like a type of guy you could impersonate.
Demand. Yeah.
Rhode Island is a weird place though, so there's no talent.
I've done so much comedy in Rhode Island. I've done it like as an open micer, and I've done it like on tour as a booked comedian, and it's a funny place. It's like, as far as the comedy scene, I know tons of funny comics from there, but like they're the guys who have this joke set up where it's like, dude, I was at a fucking place, they asked me to do this, and I was like, I'm gonna do this other fucking thing, you know. It's just that like so many pantomime hitting a joint and then saying the punchline out in fake smoke.
Hell yeah! I'm from Rhode Island, so I have not me, but like my family. My family's from Federal Hill and Providence, so So I have a special place in my heart for it. I still have family there and stuff. It's a very weird. Yeah. Like it being the smallest state, like really, it really is like its own place in a way that is like very strange for a place that's like 20 square miles. But I remember the former mayor, Buddy Cianci, like he beat a guy to death with a log out, not to death, but he beat a guy with a log out of the fireplace in like the exegutive office. Like, it's a weird place.
They're not fucking around out there. I've heard that the New England, all the New England mafia stuff was based out of Rhode Island. Yeah, which is crazy because it's the smallest state. You'd think it would be based out of like Boston or Hartford, maybe. Nope. Rhode Island.
Well, Boston had the Irish, so the Italians sort of regrouped in Providence, which is again there's a big Italian American community there, which is what my family is from. So it was a good place to set up shop, kind of halfway between New York and Boston.
It's right there where you need it in the middle. It's kind of
plus like there's a lot of ports near there, so like if you're bringing in contraband stuff, it's a good spot.
Yeah, dude, I was there last time. I was doing a winery in Cranston, and I've done that place a couple times. Pretty cool. We had some listeners come out that they live in Massachusetts. They're the ones that always give us some bud. Those guys, they came out and met us in Rhode Island. But there was one time I just had to tell these guys like, "Hey, we're about to do a show, so if you have a ticket, you got to leave." And I was like, and I was super nice about it. And on the way out, the guy's like, "Yeah, well, I guess we got to fucking leave." And the guy like lunged at me a little bit. I was like, "Dude, I don't give a shit, man. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you." So that's like the vibe out there. But so she marries David Rossi, and a lot of his younger life, like his story about his younger life, comes from his stepdad. His stepdad, David, as he said, computer whiz, math whiz. He said Nick was smart, but he knew it, and he used it to fuck with people. I know kids aren't naturally bad, but the stories you hear about this guy, it seems like he's just one of those kids, like, he didn't come from a good environment, and he was very smart, and he learned real quick to flip it around and weaponize it. Yeah. And I spent my early 20s in Hartford, and so I know, like, those, like, East Coast guys, like dudes in general, but like to be tough. And I can imagine him not being that tough of a guy, but taking what he knew and being tough about it, because he was known as a computer whiz. So he would say things like, "I'll get on my computer and ruin your life in 5 minutes." And like some like neighborhood tough is like, "I don't fucking know, dude. And don't computer me, dude. I don't know. I don't want that,
don't computer me."
So he said his stepdad, according to his stepdad, David, he said that he would hit his mom. He would hit other kids. He was always like, he would swing at him. He woke up before school and decided to start like hitting his mom. So the dude is getting interviewed by Dateline and this thing. The guy goes, "Dude, so I don't care. You know what I did? He wasn't ready for school yet. He's still in his underwear. I picked him up in his underwear, put him on the school bus." Like, sent him to school in his underwear.
This is before this guy's in foster care, right?
Yes, this is his early. And this time, this is like, it's actually a little crazy how young it is, because I heard all these stories and then I checked the dates and I was like, shit, man, all this happens from like 7 to 10.
Damn.
Which is like not a good environment. So, but this David guy said that he would ruin every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. He goes, quote, "He was wicked. He was a devil spawn." So they institutionalized him, and he said he got kicked out of there. Finally, they went on a family trip to Disney World, and at that trip, Nicholas attacked his mom, and David the stepdad lost his mind, and as he told the Dateline reporter, that he beat the hell out of him and put him in the hospital. Which,
God damn.
Yeah, don't beat up a kid. Don't do it. There's that little small part of my brain, though, that is just like, yeah, smack that motherfucker. But that's not correct. Don't do that. And the lady calls
Don't beat up your mom. Don't beat up a kid that's beating up its mom.
Don't do it.
A lot of things you shouldn't do in this story.
Yeah. So at this point, the stepdad leaves, which I guess if you're going to leave, it might as well be when you hospitalize the kid.
Yeah, it's probably time to go.
Yeah. So Nick goes into foster care. And so at this point, he's still getting in a lot of trouble, very troubled life. They find out that like he gets in trouble at one point, and a judge is like, "Hey, why don't we put you in like a program?" Because he liked going to the courthouse. He liked like the process. And they're like, "Well, how about we enroll him?"
Even if he was on fucking trial because he's a little criminal. He's like, "I love going to the courthouse."
This is pretty cool though. I like this. Like, I got a little pitcher of water. This is nice. So basically, they were like, okay. Well, how about we put him in like the Page program at the Capitol building at the State House? And so he goes in there, and it's like one of those things where like a kid discovers the thing he loves. You know, like when Bill Gates gets his first computer, he gets in there and he's like, "Oh shit, I love this lifestyle."
Well, it makes sense for a kid who is used to using his intelligence to wield power over other people that he'd be like, "Politics, this is my shit."
It's so crazy. Yeah, it is nuts that they like this. This is like sending Anakin to Jedi training. Like, just like,
yep.
So they put him in there, and he takes to it like a fish to water. He loves reading the bills. He's a policy wonk. At like 13 years old, they said he would read bills front to back. They said he had more knowledge and like intimate understanding of the bills than a lot of the politicians did, because they don't ever read them, and he would.
Right.
And those little kids, sponge brain, you just you absorb everything. Mm-hmm. So he gets really close with a lot of figures. One of them was a representative with the last name Coogan, and he would just call him Rep. He called him Rep because it was Representative Coogan. Aww. So Rep Coogan was like, "Yeah, I like the kid." At one point, he was getting close to aging out of the foster care system. So he calls Coogan and was like, "Hey, man, you got to adopt me, or I'm going to go back into these foster homes. Or I'm going to age out of the system. I know where to go. And I've been getting abused. I've been getting hit. I've been getting beat." And so Coogan was like, "All right." So he goes to the judge. And the judge is like, "What did he tell you?" He's like, he's getting beat, assaulted. The kid's got marks on him. And he's like, "Look, man, I can't show you his file because he's a minor. But everything you're saying that he's doing, or that's getting done to him, he's doing to other kids." And so Coogan was like,
"Pretty sure you're not allowed to tell anyone that, but also like I get why he was like, dude, do not adopt this child."
Yeah, it's like problem child. It's like, hey, if you just let Michael Richards kidnap this kid. Don't actually adopt him. So Coogan calls foster care. They tell him all that shit. So eventually the kid does age out of the system. And he finds himself in Dayton, Ohio, around college age. And he gets adopted by an elderly Ohio couple or older Ohio couple. And he starts going to a community college, Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. And he gets there, and this is where we're going to get into like some of the crimes that he's wanted for. And this is, where he was assaulting women. Mm-hmm. So he meets a girl through MySpace, a girl named Mary Grabinski. They decided to meet in a public place, and she was like, yo, he's very charming. He was nice. He's a great listener. He just said he was new to the area and wanted to meet people. We talked for about 30 minutes, me and my friend. We had a really good time with him. And then he said, hey, can I walk you to your class? And she was like, yeah, sure. Her class is in a basement. She said as soon as he got her in the basement, he started making moves on her. It got very violent. We'll get into details if you want to. It's out there, like her testimony's out there, but it got very violent. She was able to fight him off before he, successfully achieved anything. Goes to class, gets out of class, and he's back outside. And he's like, "Hey, God. Don't call the cops. Please don't call the cops." Da, 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 da. And she's like, "No, because the way you did that," she said, "it seemed very ritualistic, and I was not the first person you've done that to."
Right, so, like it seemed like you, yeah.
Yeah, and she said she was like, "But I wanted to be the last." And so, get him, girl.
Good for her.
And so she goes to the authorities, and he, and as this is happening, another woman in Ohio comes forward and was like, "Yeah, he sexually assaulted me as well." Yeah. So he's got two of those on the table. So he goes to court. He tries to claim that she was the aggressor, and this girl was 90 pounds at the time, and the judge was like, "No, not at all." But what he did do was he showed up. So the judge ruled against him, but he showed up to the case in a 3-piece suit with a cane. And Mary Grabinski was like, I firmly believe that affected his sentencing because they didn't give him any jail time.
Wow,
yeah.
They were like, but he looks so sharp.
Yeah. Come on. He puts himself together nice,
I'd be like 18-year-old with a 3-piece suit and a cane. That's a weirdo. Throw the book at him. That's a freak. Get him out of here.
Oh yeah, don't do that. Yeah, this kid has a fucking pocket square. He's 18 years old.
Yeah, get him out. That's a pervert. That's someone bad. No thanks.
Yeah, you're giving off real British vibes. We covered that up top, So he did have to go to a sex offender rehab program. He had to register as a sex offender for 15 years. And he had to pay a fine, but no jail time. So he, in turn, and this is like, I'm going to get into these details because they are important, but he flips it and starts like a personal attack campaign against her. Mm-hmm. He makes a fake MySpace page and her name, and then makes a post as her confessing that it was all consensual, and she only said that because she had a boyfriend and she wanted to conceal her undying love for him. Not her boyfriend, but for him. Like conceal her undying love for Nicholas from her boyfriend. Ugh. So and it was just very gross stuff. So he countersues her, and it says he has new information with this Facebook post or this MySpace post. The judge calls the case back in, hears the evidence, immediately throws it out, charges him, or makes him pay for her legal fees. Sure. So they see right through his bullshit. But he launches his campaign against her and her husband, harassing them online. He also starts to become a voice on incel boards. And men's rights. Yeah, he was like a leading poster on a men's rights activist board called A Voice for Men. Finally, right? Yeah. For too long.
I feel like I could have seen this coming when his the way he tried to deal with this court case was to say that the woman was the aggressor. It was like, this is incel shit. That's what this is. Even when this is someone who just truly hates women. Yeah. Yep.
Even when he slips into his little Edwin Cobblepot fucking fake British mode that we're seeing later, even when he's doing that, he's like, I was accused of rape. It could happen to anyone. I said that voice because he has COVID, but it could happen to anyone. Like the risk isn't that you could get assaulted. The risk is that you can get accused of assault. And it's like, what kind of fucking backwards incel logic is that? Exactly. So this is what he does. So he starts like an online campaign against her and her husband. He sues her again in 2012 because her husband called him crazy on a website. Okay. And so defamation of all of these things get thrown out.
Yeah, but he keeps bothering them.
It gives you an idea of
it's harassment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 2015, he shows. So he leaves Ohio at this point, and then he goes back to Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's in Rhode Island, that was when he becomes a voice for foster care reform.
Okay.
He talks about how he was. Rhode Island had a program where they would outsource their foster children to the surrounding states because it's such a small state, and they would go stay in houses in Connecticut or Rhode Island or Massachusetts. And that, the more places you're shuffling kids off to, the more chances they're going to get abused.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was abused. He said, I was assaulted daily and all this crazy shit. So he fought to end that cost-saving measure to outsource their foster care to other households in other states. Mm-hmm. And so that was like a big campaign that he went on. And he really made a name for himself because they were like, oh, this was this kid, this troubled kid that came in here into the Page program, and now he's back. He's in a 3-piece suit. He wears bow ties. He wears, like, in our last episode we just recorded, we talked about people who enjoy the finer things. That was what he projected, a very sophisticated air.
And it's like, I get why
at my funeral.
Yeah. I get why the people involved in this, in like Rhode Island politics, wanted to see the best in this guy. Because it's like, it's it's a confirmation of not only like, look at it, obviously it's a hopeful confirmation that like people can rise above their circumstances, but it's also like, look what a positive influence we are. And even beyond that, like, even though he's fighting for foster care reform, it's like, look, this guy's a product of the foster care system. Like, you can be a functional, successful adult going through a state custody, and like all of that stuff makes all of them look good if they ignore the fact that he's Sorry, you froze again. You're frozen again.
I picked up. You said ignore the fact. That's what I heard you say. Are we good?
Did I freeze for you too?
Yeah, you freeze for me too.
Okay.
Or froze for me too.
I don't know. We can just keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, it makes them look good. It's like, hey, this guy came up around us. Now he's doing great. It's good for everybody. If he's telling the truth, that's a win-win-win-win. Everybody benefits off his story. So he does leave Rhode Island politics and shows back up in Dayton, Ohio, where he is the adopted son of this couple. So he starts getting there. He starts getting involved in local politics, and I was like, compare Dayton to Providence, Rhode Island. He seems like he's coming from the big leagues. He's like when an established comic moves to a small scene. Like he's running things. He goes there. He's wowing people at city hall meetings, and he starts a nonprofit called the Community Progress Institute. And his goal is to spice up Dayton, beautify downtown. We're gonna make things good again. I'm gonna win-win for the community. So he starts attending church, and he meets a woman named Catherine Heckendorn. So Kim and Catherine Heckendorn meet. They start a courtship, and she's impressed with him. She's like, dude, he was. And also, I think he has like a Rhode Island accent. There's something about East Coast accent that I think sound authoritative to people like in the South and the Midwest. Not authoritative, but it sounds wise. It's appealing. It's appealing. Yeah, it's like this guy's snappy. He's smart. He he thinks quick. I think it makes you seem intelligent.
People from the Northeast talk fast, and I think either if you're not like, people are either very repelled by that or they think it makes you seem smart. Yeah. It's one or the other. Ben
Shapiro, not from the Northeast, but Ben Shapiro talks fast, and that's all. That's the only thing he has, and he's fooled millions. So he shows up. He meets Catherine Heckendorn at church. Catherine said she had just got out of an abusive relationship, and she was like, "Oh, this is a church guy." So she takes him out. They start talking. Then he does, again, how he said he hits the check marks for every one of our guys. He starts lying about going to Harvard. He's like, yeah, I'm a Harvard grad. He did take one class on the online Harvard thing. Like that we talked about. Yeah.
That like the online Harvard thing that exists specifically so people can lie about going to Harvard.
Yep.
They're just making their money that way. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Insane. He says he does that. Eventually, one day they're just watching TV and he proposes to her. And she's like, I don't know, this is kind of quick, but he's persistent about it. And she was like, you know what? This is a good guy. I met him in church. He has his nonprofit. He's beautifying the community.
Do we know if she knows that he's on the sex offender registry at this point?
No, because that comes up. That does come up.
So she does not know at this point.
No, she does not. So
Google the people you're about to marry, folks. Not saying you have to Google a first date, but if you're about to marry him, give him a quick Google.
Yeah. So she agrees, and then almost immediately sees a personality change in him. He goes from being very nice and very charming. Every woman that are his victims, they've talked about. They were like, he was a great listener. He was kind. It was like one of those people that the dirty mackin', where you just find out you're like, oh, if I'm a nice guy, I could be a piece of shit. Like,
this is what I've always said. Marriage is the equivalent of bringing a woman down into a basement. That is the emotional. When you see the change in a man, it's the same shit. It's how they treat you if they had you alone in a basement. So like, be careful.
Yeah, that's not faulty logic, girl. So he gets there, and eventually he finds out that she has a savings account.
Oh boy.
And he says, look, the what the hell was that vapid name? The Community Progress Institute. Look, the CPI is going to fail if I don't get some cash.
So that's his Dayton beautifying organization. The Community
Beautified Dayton. Institute. Yeah, it's like Beautified Dayton. I am going to put a flower hat on this drunk guy. Like how downtown Dayton looks way better. I've never been to Dayton, Ohio. I assume it's beautiful. Shout out. Dayton. But so he gets there. So he asked her for $10,000. And over time, $10,000 turns into $55,000. And at this point, he is being abusive. She's trying to call the police, not just like trying emotionally, physically trying to call the police. Yeah. And like he's like physically stopping her from doing it. Yeah. And then I can imagine doing one of these things, like holding her in one place, like don't do that, talking her down, just horrible abusive shit. He's doing that. One day she decides she's going to record it. Just records it on the phone, and he does not disappoint. He completely delivers, gives what seems to be the performance of a lifetime as far as abuse goes. Like everything you would want if you're trying to but if you're trying to prove somebody's being abusive, he gave her everything on that tape. And she goes to the police. They're like, they arrest him. They run his shit, and they're just like, yo, he's on the sex offender list. And she was like, I didn't know that. Yeah. And she said one of the officers was like, ma'am, I drive by this house every day on my beat. I'm scared to my bones right now that I'm going to drive by one day and you're going to be dead. He's like, I really think that's what's going on here. Yeah. So she decides she's going to flee. So she just leaves, doesn't even take her dogs. She just has 5 seconds to herself. Runs in the car, hops out, drives off. He, through GPS tracking on the phone, realizes that she's left. Engages in a high-speed chase. Sign, head-on collision to somebody, getting away from this guy. God. He flees the scene. What a piece of shit. Yeah, I mean, are you? Hold on,
you froze.
Did we freeze?
Yeah, you froze.
It appears as though you have frozen.
Am I here? Am I back? Am I back? Hello? Yeah. Hello, am I back?
You're back now. Okay, you're back now.
Okay, you froze for me too for like a minute.
Yeah, yours is frozen as well. I have to use the restroom. Maybe 1 second. 1 second. I'm back. All right. Should I just start over from the drive thing?
How much longer do you think this one's going to be?
Let's see where we're at. We're at 42. I would say I could probably wrap it up in like 2025.
Okay, I mean, if it's gonna be, don't like rush it. I'm just wondering if we should get off Zoom because like you keep freezing, I keep freezing. But if it's only like 20-ish minutes more, I think we can probably finish it.
Yeah, I think we got it at 20.
Okay. I mean, like if it's longer than 20, that's fine. I was just like, if it's going to be like 40 more minutes, I would probably want to switch to phone, but it seems like we can.
No, I honestly like 20. I think 2025 is what we got.
Okay. All right. And I'm marking all the time, so I'll send them to you when you do the Zoom.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So
the last thing I heard was that they're in a high-speed chase. He pursues her in a high-speed chase. So start from there.
Okay. So she makes a break for it. Just a few minutes. She leaves. Due to GPS tracking, he notices that she's leaving. He chases her. She gets into a high-speed collision with another car. He watches it. And at this point, we about her. But it's just shitty to think that so he drives away. At this point, like she's like, okay, we're done. Her family helps her get out of there. That she wants to divorce him, but he started wearing disguises to avoid his subpoenas. So he'd be like walking around town with like wigs, and the officers would be like, man, like the process servers, like they have to identify him, but like we know that's him. We know that's the guy. We saw him wearing a wig by his nonprofit or shit like that. So at this time, it comes out from his Ohio foster parents, the elderly couple that adopted him, who went to the same church as his wife, Catherine, so she knows these people. He had taken out 10 credit cards in their name to the tune of $200,000.
Oh my God.
And they were just
10
like
credit cards.
Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah. I just like, I don't know, for some reason, like stealing $200,000 from someone is bad regardless in credit, but somehow 10 credit cards is like worse because then you have to like call all the different credit card companies and like deal with all the different credit cards. For some reason, that's like a worse crime to me than like one credit card.
Yeah, dude, making 10 customer service phone calls, you got to hear a combined like 7 hours of hold music.
Ugh. So annoying.
Oh, that's insane. Yeah. So he has that going on. So since he got a domestic violence charge while registered as a sex offender, he got a visit from the cops.
Yeah.
So he gets a visit from the cops, but he's not at his address. And so they're like, all right, well, this dude, they put him on the Rhode Island most wanted list. Although I'm not sure why it happened because it was based out of Ohio, but in the charge, again, I don't know, but he was put on the Rhode Island most wanted list. So he calls them saying, hey, what the hell am I on the Rhode Island most wanted list for? They're like, failure to register as a sex offender. He berates this guy like, you don't know the laws of Rhode Island and talks down to him. But it turns out he was right. If you leave the country, you don't have to register as a sex offender anymore.
Wait,
so because
leave the country?
Yeah, he moved to Scotland. They couldn't find him. After that thing happened in Ohio, he fled to Scotland.
Okay.
Bought a one-way ticket. And so because he left and went to another country, he didn't have to register as a sex offender anymore.
Got it.
And he was actually right. Like it wasn't like it wasn't like one of those shithouse lawyer things. They were like, yeah, no, he's correct. However, he was still wanted for the fraud charge. So it wasn't like he was off the hook. He was off the hook for failure to register as a sex offender, but he was still
right. But he's still a domestic abuser and a thief.
Yeah, and a thief. Yes. Also, as this is happening, another case comes out in Utah from 2008. I don't know how he went from Ohio to Utah.
Guy's just traveling across the country, beating the shit out of people. What an asshole.
Just like a cross-country assaulter. So yeah, he was in Utah. There was a guy named David Levitt. And David Levitt was the district attorney, and he found out that the town that he lived in Utah was holding on to old rape kits from investigations and hadn't investigated any of them. So he finds out about this, and he's like, this is unacceptable. Let's get these things investigated. And they find one match out of all of those, and that match is for Nicholas Rossi.
Yep.
So Nicholas Rossi, it was Utah.
Somehow found the time to go to Utah and commit a crime. Somehow in all of his important political advocacy.
Advocating for children, he found out how to get to Utah and assault women. So apparently what happened with that was he met a woman in Utah. He started a consensual sexual relationship with her and then started borrowing sums of money from her. When she realized the money wasn't coming back, she went to his house to confront him about the money, and he assaulted her there at the apartment. And so they saw similarities in that case to the initial Grabinski case because he met her on MySpace. Same way he did that girl where it's like, hey, I'm new in the area, I just want to make new friends. Same way he met her, except he just kept the con up for longer. So even though multiple U.S. states and 2 countries were looking for Nichola Alahverdian, like I said, he's a computer-savvy guy, Nick had successfully given him the slip by using dummy IP numbers for all his online activity. But that's a hard act to keep up. And eventually, when while living in Scotland with his new wife, this is Louise at this point.
Who I'm assuming also didn't know any of this backstory. Probably thought he went to Harvard.
Well, we're gonna get into that because remember there was the widow who released the statement was Louise.
Okay.
And so
that's true. She helped him fake the death. Okay, I forgot.
Yeah, fake the death. Well, they find him living in Scotland, and at this point they find an address associated with his IP address. They find a physical address. They go there, and he's there with there's a woman there named Miranda. And they said, we're looking for your husband. And she's like, well, my husband isn't here. He's in a hospital right now in a medically induced coma battling COVID on a respirator. But he's not an American named Nichola Alahverdian. He is a British man named Arthur Knight.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, well, we got to go see him. So they go there, and basically it was right when he woke up from his medically induced coma.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
he's like, put me back in the medically induced coma, please.
They arrive, they check his tattoos, his fingerprints, and his mugshots to Nichola Alahverdian, and that were provided to them by U.S.
I didn't realize there were tattoos and fingerprints involved. Like, all right, man, the jig is fucking up, dude.
You would think so, Kath, and that's because you're not a dreamer.
Yeah,
you don't have the mind for creation that Nichola Alahverdian has. So they arrest him, but he insists that no, I'm Arthur Knight. I'm a British businessman. And they were like, so
is he doing the accent?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Now here's what
very important.
Here's what he has going for him. He's recovering from COVID, so he has the oxygen mask that covers the face. But he also talks like this. How could I do this thing? It is
he's like Michael Caine.
yeah. It is very easy to fake an accent if you're talking like this.
Right.
No one can hear you. There's so much you don't have to account for in the way that your voice inflects and rises. So much. So there was a Scottish investigator who was producing a podcast about, because now at this point it's broke that there's possibly an American living under assumed identity in Scotland, and it's like hitting like true crime circles.
Right. And there are only like 20 people there, so they're like, we gotta figure this out.
Yeah, something happened that didn't involve sheep, and they're like, hold on, look into this. It's not sheep or heroin, it's gonna make the news. So she looks into this, and she meets up with Arthur and his wife, and at this point he's married. So Alahverdian was married to a woman named Louise.
Yeah.
Arthur McKnight is married to a woman named Miranda.
Oh, okay. Totally different. Totally different people. Yeah.
You see, because how can they be the same person when one is named Louise and another is named Miranda? I don't know. Yeah, Clark Kent has glasses. I mean, we've been through it. So, a Scottish producer investigating a podcast about the affair met with Arthur and his wife Miranda for dinner one evening at their flat. She said Arthur was wheelchair bound but dressed to the nines. And after a few hours, she asked to see his arms to verify the tattoos, and she claimed she saw none. So
Dermablend, baby. There's makeup for that.
She said she checked to see if it was makeup, but there's a thought that he might have just used pink paint. Because you're saying like makeup will rub, but paint will, kind of like.
Also, there's ways to get makeup not to rub. Like
Also, there's shit I don't fucking know.
You can set that shit with powder. You can put like spirit gum over. Like there are things you can do. You could use like liquid latex. Like there's all kinds of. I mean, unless she was like really going at it, I think that it could easily be makeup. But anyway.
Calm down with the rubbing. You're going to make something happen. Yeah, also, I have no tattoos, so if shit hits the fan, I got a fighting chance. I got a fighting chance to live as, Paul Siwa if I can come back until everything comes crashing down. So she said she was there. She said she saw none. So now Dateline, and by the way, I know talk about it on the show. I love Dateline. That is one of my favorite media institutions. I love I listen to so much Dateline podcasts on the road that I just know all of their voices. I love Keith Morrison. Keith Morrison is the white Morgan Freeman. He has the best voice. He's also the horniest voice in broadcasting. Because he'll be like, it was a small town day, and that afternoon in the cafe, a new girl in town. The accountant, short brown hair, long legs, youthful looking. It's like, okay, Keith.
Settle down, Keith. Yeah. Back on track.
Yeah, back on track. Dude, he's literally been talking to people. We're like, so what was the appeal? I mean, how did she catch all these men? Was she good in bed? I heard him ask that before.
Jesus.
I love Keith Morrison so much. Also, he's Matthew Perry's stepdad.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I hope when Matthew Perry was at his lowest, he just judged him. It's like, you're going to drag the name of the fine Keanu Reeves in your book? Sir, I hope he's the worst stepdad to Matthew Perry. Anyways, so Dateline did it. They reported on this for years. They were on this story before it had an ending. They were just like, let's see how this. They were like, we're going to see how
this broke in 2020 sometime.
That was when the initial it was in 2021. I think was when the death started popping up.
In 2020, people thought he died, and then in 2021. They found out he was still alive and in the hospital with COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was time, and apparently the court systems move slow in Scotland, especially when it comes to extradition, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah.
For reasons that are honorable to Scotland, and I'll bring those up in a little bit. So, Dateline gets an interview, and they start talking to the guy. And they're like, "Okay, so if you're not Nichola Alahverdian, who are you?" And this is what this Charles Dickens motherfucker came up with. He said he started off as an orphan in Ireland.
Sure.
And oh, damn it, I don't want to be unprofessional and be like, baby, what was that Irish movie you were talking about? What's the Irish orphan movie? Not so
Angela's Ashes?
Angela's Ashes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sid made a joke. She's like, what kind of Angela's Ashes bullshit is this? So he was an orphan in Ireland. Then he said he lived in Dublin and Belfast. He moved to London, where he worked public relations for a wireless firm. He said that.
By the way, you know what all this establishes too is an inconsistent accent, because he's from Ireland, he lives in Scotland, he lived in England, so it's just sort of vaguely United Kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. Another victim of his that we'll get to in a second says that he was using a British accent with Irish phrases, and she was like, "That doesn't make any sense. Like, you wouldn't. Someone with that accent wouldn't say that.
Wouldn't say
but
that."
He said,
yeah.
"Oh, well, at the time, I'm living now with my wife in Ireland," and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, maybe he picked it up." But people did catch on to that because that's a big part of the national identity is the regional accents, and the common person is pretty well versed on them over there.
Yeah.
I guess it's anywhere. It's like you can tell what part of the country people are from if you live there, So. He said he met her at he worked at PR for a wireless firm, and then he met Miranda in 2011 at an art museum. But they were both in relationships at the time, but they still exchanged info, and they started as friends, and they bumped back into each other several years later and became romantically involved. They got married in February of 2020.
Oh, okay.
Which I must acknowledge is a coincidence. But he got married in February 2020, the same month Nicholas died, and they said they were on their honeymoon when he died. 2 years later, Arthur gets COVID, and he's in a medically induced coma on a ventilator. They told him he wouldn't make it. Wakes up 3 months later, cops show up. Now at this point, they tell before they
does he say because you say he was on his honeymoon when he died. He maintains that he doesn't even know this person, right?
Yeah,
never met him. Okay.
Yeah, it's the wildest mix-up. I was just a regular dude, and the crosshairs of the universe fell right on my forehead.
Okay.
So he says the cops get there and they said, "Hey, do you want your wife to leave the room? Because like we're about to talk about some pretty serious allegations, and this is your wife. You don't want to hear." And he's like, "No, where I go, my wife goes, and she can come in. She can listen to this." And so they're like, "All right, well, you're Nichola Alahverdian, and you are wanted for rape and fraud in America." And the woman, Miranda, was like, "No, there's no way my husband can rape anyone. He's a gentle soul." He's like, "I never did this." So all this is going on. So when this story breaks in the news over there, another woman comes forward, and she is a little bit of a public figure. She has a show on A&E. It's called Nausicaa Plants Only by Nausicaa, I believe. Basically, her name's Nausicaa Antipas. She is a Indian Canadian woman who lives in Montreal, and she has a vegan cheese company called Plant Based.
Okay.
And she was like, "Yo, I know this guy." When the interviews started coming out, she's like, "I know this dude. I hired him in 2020 to provide PR for my vegan cheese company."
Jesus.
Yeah. Except
what does this guy not have his like fingerprints on?
He does everything. Yeah.
What a varied career of being a piece of shit. I'm going to fix Dayton. I'm going to fix the foster care system in Rhode Island. I'm going to promote your vegan cheese. Like,
and hands and everything, dude. Yeah. So she was like, "Yeah, I met him on like a Fiverr type website, but for like a little more serious employment." And she was looking for somebody to do PR, and she hired a guy who she thought was named Timothy Arthur Nicholas Knight Brown to provide PR for her vegan cheese company. He strung her along for 4 months, pocketing $7,000 a month was his salary. Yeah,
we got to get into PR. That's a good racket.
And so he then she's hitting her up, and every time she's like, "Where's the work at? Where's the work? Where's my PR? I don't know what that substantiates as, but like, where's my public relations?" And he'd be like, "Oh, my wife is in the hospital. Now I'm in the hospital. Now my dog is in the hospital." He would send her a picture of his dog. And she was like, "I think he wanted me to think the dog looked sick," but it was just the dog. Like the dog was just like there was no. She was like, "I still don't quite understand why he was doing that."
Yeah.
So then he said, "Hey, I'm actually starting another company, and I think you'd want to get in on this." And Nausicaa, at this point, I think you should have known better, girl, but whatever. He goes, I want you to get in on this. She invested a little bit more money. It's undisclosed, but I think it's around $5,000 because she said in 4 months she gave him $40,000. And so
this reminds me, her going in on a company with him reminds me of when I had this really terrible roommate right when I moved to Austin. And she found a really nice house with really cheap rent and convinced me to move with her there. And when she had already been like fighting with her boyfriend at 4 a.m. like for months, and I was like, "All right, let's do it." I think I lasted like 2 months and I was fucking out. Yeah. So I feel you, girl. I feel you. I know what happens. You get sucked in. Sucked in.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, she said she gave him $40,000 over 4 months. So actually, no, it would be $12,000 because sometimes 4 is 28. She said she gave him $40K. So maybe she invested $12,000 in this business, or maybe there's other expenses. I don't quite know, but she gave that, and he goes, "Yeah, all I need is a copy of your passport." And she gave him a copy of her passport, which, Nausicaa, you have 4 seasons of a show at A&E. You clearly have a very successful vegan cheese company.
Yeah,
I think you would know better. Don't do this. But then again, we're not a victim blaming podcast.
I say that, but like I've done so many like comedy gigs where they've asked me for a copy of my passport, and I've just given it to them. Yeah. Like I fill out a W-9 and send an email attachment with a picture of my passport, like probably once a month. So I have given my social security number to a comedy promoter in Edinburgh, Texas. Yeah, exactly. So like, can we judge?
Cannot. So she gives him all this money, and then eventually he just stops doing fucking work for her, and she's like, "Okay, I don't like this." And she blocks him on all the accessibility platforms. That they use to work in the company. He calls pissed. He's like, "Oh, God damn it, Nausicaa!" Like, "How dare you!" And just yells at her, and she's like, "No, you're not getting any work done for me." He goes, "Okay, well, on deck, waiting for all this, I've already had an entire negative online PR campaign. All I got to do is go live on these websites. Yep. So you better cut me some fucking money, or all this is going live. And to her credit,
turns into blackmail. Yeah,
she was like,
PR is just positive blackmail, really.
Yeah,
so, if you have internet cyberbullying skills, you have PR skills. It's the same.
Just say the opposite of what you would have said.
Yeah,
So she was like, all right. So he makes it. She was like, nope, you're done. I'm done with you. He makes it all go live. It's a website that comes across as a fraud alert website, but it's not official. Yeah. And it has her passport photo made to look like a mugshot.
Nice.
Yeah, it contains the line, I don't know where I see the website, and somewhere in there it goes plant-based, more like plant-faced.
Oh,
yeah, got her ass, dude. She melted like vegan cheese, dude. She was like, no, like, and then he started an online smear campaign and saying that her cheese was not vegan. And I love vegan food. I enjoy a lot of it. I have a lot of homies that are very talented vegan chefs. But I think if you wanted to smear a vegan cheese platform, you'd be like, yeah, I ate her cheese. It was delicious. They're like, oh no,
yeah,
it's not real.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, I ate it and I liked it, so something's up.
Yeah.
So I'll shout out to Plow Burger, fucking great vegan burger website, and shout out to Fast Ronald. RJ is a comedian and vegan food chef that I go way back with, and he's very talented. If you're in Austin, check him out. So that being said, so at this point, he's got a lot of negative press. He's exposed in the media. The British reporters are just fucking with him. They're like running around, like running after him on the street. Like he's in his little wheelchair. He has his head down, and they're like telling him stuff like, "Hey, say this word." Like,
because, they're just doing bits with him now.
Yeah. There's something that's so like detached and uncaringly funny about the British populace. Like Bill Burr has that story where he was over there and he was trying to make a joke where he said somebody's the Michael Jordan of this thing. But he goes, I don't know, who's y'all's Michael Jordan? And one guy yells out a name. And he goes, okay. And the rest of the time he keeps calling back to that Michael Jordan bit, but saying that name. And he just stops. He goes, I've heard these laughs before. You're not laughing with me. You're laughing at me. What's going on? And like some guy was like, oh, we told you like the worst player in the fucking league. And the whole audience just went along with it and let Bill Burr flounder on stage for an hour. So I feel like the British public is good with shit like that.
Yeah.
So he calls another fucking another press conference, and he introduces his new attorney, Craig Johnson. Now, Craig Johnson used to work in the office of David Levitt, who was the DA from Utah, who was pursuing Nicholas for rape charges.
Okay.
And so he flies this guy out to Scotland to be his representative. And he's like, this man is being slandered. My former boss is out for blood. He's trying to drag his name. There's no real explanation for why this random lawyer from Utah is so eager to work with this guy. I think, my own theory, possible incel connect. Why else would you fly 24 hours to defend a rapist? You know, like if you weren't just like, oh, this is the guy who told me that, you know, all rape is fucking, or you're more likely to get falsely accused of rape than to be rape or whatever.
Right. Yeah. He might be like a false accusation activist or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like from a forum.
Yeah. That's
not a bad theory, Pat. Not a bad theory.
Yeah. So the attorney said, they were like, so you've seen this guy's face? He goes, yeah, I've seen his face. You seen his tattoos? He's like, yeah, they're not there. And he's like, I've seen everything. I've seen his birth certificate. I've seen all this shit. Well, there's one more. So Arthur does one more interview with Dateline, and this time they play hardball. They're just like, and this is the interview that caught everybody's attention. You have to watch this, and we will share it along with the thing. It is like a Saturday Night Live sketch. They're sitting there. He is wearing like a little suit and a top hat because he's a British gentleman.
Just going full British, yeah.
Yeah, it was like he Googled like British man.
He tucks into some mushy peas.
Yeah, yeah.
Gets a steak and kidney pie. He's like going for it. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like he's sitting there, and like at one point his wife. So he's like. And he talks in his voice like this. And this is his British accent, and it's out of breath. And he goes, they go, what do you say to people who say this is all just an act? And you're just crying crocodile tears. He goes, that's a low blow, Jerry. It's a right low blow. He goes, People say I'm faking it. They say I can really walk. I can't walk. Look at this. Should I go to walk? Should I go to walk? And his wife's like, no, I know. He goes, exactly. It is a piece of physical comedy for the fucking ages. And at one point, she goes, what about people that say you're just lying? And he starts crying, and his wife's like, oh, no, look what you've done now. Now he's crying. He's like, and his little glasses fog up. It's literally just comedy. It's insane. Watch that video. We will share it with the thing. So in this interview, he says he has proof that he is not this fucking that he's not this guy. He says, I just want to go back to being a normal husband. All of this is so crazy. And it's like, hey, newsflash, there are no normal husbands, buddy. So then he just goes, so he says that he will show his face in the interview. She goes, well, can you show it now? He goes, once I've caught my breath, I'll take this off. And they're like, and he never does it. They ask, can they see his arms? Yeah, in a second. It's like, in a second, you're in the interview, dog. Where are you going?
You're here. What are you going to do? Yeah.
That is, again, a bold move, to say the least. But so Miranda said that the couple one day hopes to be done with all this, crack open a bottle of champagne, and get back to their, quote, normal lives with their beautiful dogs. Since his arrest, 3 more women have come forward with assault allegations, one of them in the UK. So since he's been there, like he's already been back at it. At one point when he was being discharged from a hospital, in his supposedly just beleaguered state, he just hopped up out the chair and got in this lady's face. It was like, what the fuck? He totally broke character.
Well, look, misogyny will power an incel to do miraculous things. So, yeah, he was moved by the spirit of hating women to get out of his wheelchair.
This deaf guy who hates women hears sound for the first time. So
he hears a woman nagging. That's the first sound he hears.
Immediately cuts his ears off. It's like, oh. So, in all of this, though, he found time to launch an assault on the Utah DA that's like charging him for rape, David Levitt. And he made a website accusing David Levitt of being a satanic human trafficking cult leader while David Levitt was running for re-election, and David Levitt lost his election. I don't know shit about Utah politics, but David Levitt is like, he's very firm. He's like, he lost me my election.
Yeah. So that is in 2023 in a Utah election, going satanic pedophile is like all you need. It's probably going to work.
I did a show in, it was Pocatello, Idaho. Yeah, I was in Pocatello, Idaho, and I walked through a bowling alley. Me and our military correspondent Shannon Mugridge, and I walked into this bowling alley. There was a girl behind the counter, and I said, "Hey, do y'all close at midnight or 11?" And 45 seconds later, she was saying the sentence, "But the vaccine makes you not human. It takes away your human right." And I was like, holy shit. What kind of land speed record did you just break? I said, do y'all close at 11? And it was like, no, because of COVID. And then it was just downhill from there.
And then it was off to the races. Yeah.
I was like, and time. I had to mark it. I was like, that is insane. So, so he gets him to lose his re-election campaign. Well, shout out to David Levitt. Because David Levitt decides that in his retirement, he is going to buy a castle in Scotland that is 50 miles from where they're housing Nichola Alahverdian. And the locals have come to call it David Levitt's Fuck You Castle.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Good for him.
So finally, before they get extradited, they had to have a ruling about his his identity. So they had the ruling. This is back in this is earlier this year. And they said, okay, well, what about your tattoos? And he says, well, my tattoos were put on my body while I was in a coma at the Glasgow hospital. And it was like, they said, just like the reporter said, one of the barrister who was prosecuting him, the prosecutor, they said his face looked like an emoji. He was just like, what makes no sense. finally said, well, what about your fingerprints? Your fingerprints match. And he said, no, my fingerprints were taken off of me by a nurse and sent to David Levitt in Utah so he could say that those were Nichola Alahverdian.
Yeah. It's all a setup. They're framing this random ass guy for some reason. Yeah.
And the judge was just like, man, I unequivocally pronounce you Nichola Alahverdian. Like you're more Nichola Alahverdian than any one person has ever been themselves. Like, you're definitely that guy. So he is now waiting on the extradition hearing in June. Here's what's going to fucking go up the works, though, is that the UK, Scotland in particular, has much higher standards for prisons than the US does. And it makes extradition a problem because they're like, well, wait a minute. We respect human life. We're not just going to
we can't extradite someone into a place that's inhumane. Yeah,
we're not going to send them into your fucking meat grinder of an American prison.
Right.
Which is like one of these things where it's like begrudgingly you're like, yes.
Yeah. You have a point, Scotland. You have a point.
I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. I hate this shit. You know, like I get it. It's like, all right, fuck. I guess it is what it is. That is how this should go. But yeah, the only bombshell after that is so we're waiting for the extradition hearing in June, but they think it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot more coming out. We already covered this. It's not a huge reveal, but the woman, the investigator who was fooled by the tattoo paint or the makeup or whatever, she said when she heard Miranda's voice on the interview, she was like, oh, that's Louise. Miranda's Louise. She was like 100%. She goes, I know my accents. That's fucking Louise. So the wife is in on it. So if this dude goes down, she should go down as well because
that's pretty wild that he was able to convince this woman to be so ride or die. I mean, I guess we learned that he is charming, like that's part of it, and maybe she's scared. I mean, I'm sure if she gets in trouble, she'll say that it's because she was scared. But I don't know, just unusual for an incel to convince a woman of anything. So
also like how do
surprising.
Shouldn't you get rooted out of the incel community if you get pussy?
That is. I feel like he's probably been cast out, but who knows? Maybe he's just an ally now. You know.
You take your wet dick and you get out of here. Right? Well, yeah, and like what you said, the two things you said, every one of his female victims have confirmed that they're very scared of him, and that he comes on charming as hell. He's a nice guy. He was cooked in politics. Like he knows how to fake it. Disingenuous fake piece of shit.
Yeah.
So
damn, that's quite an adventure. Quite a yarn.
Yeah, this is a wild one. And again, we every now and then we'll do episodes that venture out of our normal bracket. This one was a little crazy, but there's just so much there that is just completely our wheelhouse. So we had to talk about it. We will keep you updated. But yeah, right now for listeners, we have the Good Guys Club. It's people who weren't bad guys. We're working on something. There has to be like a heavy hitters club, just like the kings of being full of shit. And right now, it is certainly Nichola Alahverdian and George Santos.
They're up there for sure.
Yeah, they're in there.
Yeah, this guy, not worth it. Huge piece of shit. One of the worst people we've ever covered. Absolutely. Yeah. Big thumbs down to this guy. Wish COVID could have done us a solid here, but unfortunately, no.
It did allow us to catch him.
That's true. That's true. That was helpful.
If he didn't get COVID, it would have been a much longer process.
And it did make his life miserable. He's faking some of this for sure, but also he was in a coma for a couple months. He's probably pretty fucked up. So that's good. That's nice.
You got we'll share the video along this. We're like, look, I can't even look. He tries to get up. It's a Saturday Night Live sketch from the mid-90s. It's like peak SNL. It's very good. But guys, if you liked what you heard, thank you for listening. We do this twice a month for free. We do it 2 times a month on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal. Wherever you listen to us, if you can give us a 5-star rating and a review, that really helps get the word out. If you want to join our Patreon, it gives you access to, like I said, 2 more episodes a month, as well as our Discord. And our Discord chat is a really fun place, so you want to be there. Check us out on Twitter at LCS Podcast. And we're also on TikTok at... Are we lie, cheat, and steal on TikTok?
You made the TikTok, Pat. I have no idea.
It befuddles me to this day. Look up TikTok. Look up Line, Cheat, and Steal. We're out there. And yeah, that being said, thank you for tuning in. Kathy, got anything coming up for us?
Just listen to my other podcast, What a Time to Be Alive. It comes out every week. I'm Kath Barbadoro on social media, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, guys, I will have some dates. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a run around Texas and surrounding states here in the next couple months. So I will keep you guys posted on that. You can find me at PZTX on Twitter.com. That being said, guys, thanks for tuning in. Reach out to us. Give us some feedback on the episode. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Find us online. Be safe. Be smart. But above all, don't get caught.
Don't get caught. See you next time.
Bye.